episode participants in the process. I am Rain from the 28th century. You are at the center of history. How can I say that? Well, that stems from a framework that we time travelers call the General Civilization Progression Framework. It partitions the development of any civilization into 6 stages. Stage 1, the Forager Era, in which people live in small groups and gather or hunt for sustaining themselves. Stage 2, the Agricultural Era, in which larger groups grow crops or herd animals to provide for themselves. Stage 3, the Industrial Era, in which power engines and machinery boost production of all kinds of goods. Stage 4, the Cybernetic Era, in which automation and information networks enable effective control of nearly all parts of the environment. Stage 5, Era 5, which is radically different again, in ways that we will discuss much later. Stage 6. Finally, Era 6 is the stage of full maturity of any advanced civilization. All basic developments have reached the stage of saturation in Era 6. In a conflict between civilizations of different eras, the more advanced civilization almost always wins. That is not the defining property of these eras, but it represents a stark contrast to differing developmental stages within one single era. Ancient empires from the agricultural era have sometimes fallen to neighboring barbarians. Industrial nation-states, on the other hand, don't get overwhelmed by agricultural cultures, except in the most extreme situations. Consequently, the first people who make full use of the possibilities of the Cybernetic Era will dominate the globe. However, the defining groups won't necessarily be nation-states. Keep that in mind. Eras 5 and 6 are still too advanced for you to comprehend fully. They will be the topics of further videos, so let's focus on the Cybernetic Era for now. What is new in the Cybernetic Era? Well, what's new is the ability to have a world-spanning integrated information and control system. So far you have used the internet as means of communication, but with your level of technological development, it can be used as a means of control. That control can reach from the smallest atom to the largest nation. Nothing is exempt from the pervasive network that can be used to exert atomic control over everything. That kind of control is dangerous, and you as a species are mostly oblivious to the danger it poses. Who is in control? Who should be in control? During the next decades, you will deal with those questions and find your own answers. The answers you will find will determine the quality of your version of the Cybernetic Age. In my timeline, the Cybernetic Era turned out to be the golden age of humanity. It doesn't necessarily need to become that. In fact, in many timelines, it turns into a new dark age, with a tiny select elite controlling the vast majority, through means you are just beginning to understand. There are a couple of books that can approximate the darkness of such an outcome. Here are some of the most striking ones. 1984 by George Orwell. This is perhaps the novel that explains the psychology and mechanisms of control in the best way possible. Second, Deepness in the Sky by Werner Winge. In this science fiction novel, even more advanced and intrusive forms of control are presented. Factors determine whether the Cybernetic Era turns out good or bad for the vast majority of people. The main factor is the level of centralization of power. If power is too centralized, there is a single point of failure, a single nexus of control in which corruption has an absolutely devastating effect on the rest of the world. New mechanisms for decentralizing power need to be developed to turn the Cybernetic Era into a boon for humanity. Otherwise, the scenarios depicted in the series Black Mirror will look like a utopia compared to the future that will await you. Are you afraid now? Given your current level of development, that would be an expected reaction to the revelation of such prospects. Your need to be afraid is inversely proportional to your level of understanding. It means the more you understand, the less you need to be afraid of. This is true regardless of the situation you find yourself in. With a solid understanding of the world and yourself, there is little reason to be afraid. Fear can be helpful, but it is even more helpful to be able to control or extinguish fear. Everything is going to be alright. It's just a matter of time. But the time in between can be unpleasant. Hang on, the best is yet to come. In the case that you want to contact me privately without exposing your conversation, you can send me a mail to futurerain@protonmail.com. ProtonMail is a mail provider that makes sending and receiving encrypted emails easy. I'm using a paid email account, but you can also use free email accounts at ProtonMail. Nevertheless, I do not expect all email communication between you and me to be encrypted. Of course, you can send me an email from any kind of regular email provider. Understand deeply, act wisely, share subversively.